Okay, here we are again. This particular video tutorial is again for the river meander migration modeling in the iRIC platform. And this is video tutorial number 13, entitled Best File Management Practices. Okay, first of all, maybe these aren't the best, but this is what I've come up with after a lot of trial and error. I made so many mistakes and had to redo so many projects because I didn't organize my files in an effective way. So I'm not sure that what I've done here is the only way to do it, but I have really found it useful. So I wanted to share that with those of you who are launching into this for the first time, maybe save you some hours. So initially there were really three main areas where I found that I had stumbled over, and that I've tried to improve since then. And that's how I keep my input data file, number one, and then saving my output data, number two, and then documenting my output in a pretty thorough way. So it's worth repeating here. There are these three main aspects of keeping things organized. The first, said in a little different way, is keeping copies of the data that you use for input. And I'm being more explicit here. I have three kinds of things that I tend to use over and over for input. That would be center lines, the erosion fields, and the flow data when you're using variable flow. Okay? So the second thing that's important to document, in other words, make sure you save, is all the input parameters of your specific run. And there are two ways to do that. One is the output file. And number two, which I find more important, is saving what is called the iPro file itself, which I'll show you what that is soon, for every single run that you do separately. This number two one, saving the iPro file here, it's a hard one because it's not automatic, and you have to remember to do it yourself manually after you've made the run. And you've got to make sure you save it and put it in an appropriate place. Now I'm going to show you more about those aspects. Now the third, that I loosely call documenting the output, I'll discuss more of later. Just again, helpful ways that I've found that have worked for me. So the main option that we'll be using in the calculation condition drop-down menu and the setting, which is the choice that you make within the program, you come up with this choice, and we're going to look at output. That's where we save the output folder, and I'll show you how to do that more. By this point you should have become familiar with the input screen, but I'll show it to you in more detail when we get to that point. Okay, let's look at the typical input files that you'll need to load into iRIC with a typical run. And that would be these three. And in the past, time and time again, when I have come back to a project after having been away from it for a while, I've had to go chasing to find what I used for input, and it took a long time. So I came up with a method of always copying the files that I'm using into folders that always go along with the project. But even before we look at the files that you store the input data in for the project, there's a folder that you make for the project itself. As you can see here, when I'm doing many different things on a river, I make a folder for each separate application that I'm doing. And so this screenshot shows you tests that I've been doing. And in my case, I've numbered them one after another and given them a name that will at least give me a fighting chance of remembering what I was doing in each project. So here you see number 20. And the code tells me that OF, that means it's at the Ord ferry reach for me, I knew that. And it's from river mile 188 to 167, so it tells me what the center line was like. And then it tells me what I've been doing. It's a variable flow test there. Okay, now I'm going to open that particular folder and show you what I have there. Okay, on the left shows you a list of files, actually folders, that I've made for the project. So bear in mind that although this is one discrete project, I may do very many runs on the same project before I've exhausted the project. And the runs themselves are still one layer deeper in my file structure, as I'll show you in a minute. But looking over there, you'll see that I have 3 files that are listed and that I'm pointing out now. I've made folders for storing data for center lines, I've made folders for storing erosion field data, and I've made folders for storing flow data. Okay? And just as an example, I've opened each of those particular folders to show you that I have different center lines in the center line one. I have only a single erosion field in the erosion field one. And I have the different kinds of flow data that I might use in the flow data one. I'm not going to discuss these. As you'll go along, you'll see how they're used, and you'll also see whether storing them this way makes sense to you or not. It's not intrinsically necessary in the program to store them this way. It's just something that I have found to really be helpful. Okay. I'm back to this list of folders that I have here, and you're going to see that I go still a layer deeper to actually save my iRIC runs. As I said, even though this is a discrete project, I'm going to do many runs in the project, and I save every one of the significant ones that I do, and that sometimes can run a dozen or 2 dozen runs. You'll also see that below the one that I have marked, where it says iRIC, variable flow test, I have an ML variable flow test. That's not something that you will need. Those are MATLAB runs that I do, because I'm testing the iRIC code against a MATLAB code that we used previously. So now let me show you what it looks like inside this iRIC folder where I store my runs. After a bit of bouncing around, here I am. Each of these folders was created when the program was run. I had to give it the name for the output folder. And so I give it a rather thorough identification, because I find sometimes that I pull out of these folders, or even pull the whole folder out, to make visualizations in GIS and other things. So the better I can name it, the better off I am. Okay, now I will show you now, going into iRIC, how I save to this folder, and more importantly, the best way I've found to also save my input parameters. Just to keep it clear, I'll be doing these 2 things. First, I'll be saving the output file. Secondly, I'll be saving the iPro file. Okay, here's a project I've been working on. Here's the center line for the Ord Ferry Reach. I'm going to show you how I save it as I also run the program. Now, I've set it up, and I'm about ready to run it, and I need to save it. And remember, there are those 2 components that let you save the project in a thorough way. First of those components is setting the output path. This is relatively easy, but if you don't change the output path, the program is going to overwrite your last output path. So you also have to be careful here. Now, we go into calculation condition, setting, output. Now, In order to make this easier to read, I'm going to make it bigger. Okay, now I've been working in this project and I've set a folder. That's the main project folder. Well, it's actually the folder for the iRIC runs. Okay? And the scenario name here is iRIC Ord Ferry test number 12. So I'm going to change this to test number 13. Okay? And you save and close. Now, it has not made an output folder yet. You need to run the program. And you get some information there. There's some warnings. It says in the warning up there that it created a new output folder. So it tells me that it created that new output folder. And I'm done. Now, before I reward us and I go check that output folder and take a look at it, I want to show you the next important thing to do. And that is, once the output folder is saved, you want to save the iPro file. That means it will save the exact run that you just made with all the parameters exactly as they are in that run. Okay? Now this was the last one. This was number 12. What I tend to do is I tend to copy that and I go find the correct folder, which should be version 13, which was just made just now. And I call it version 13, and this is save as file type iPro. Save. Excellent. Can't repeat it enough. Just that one step, saving that iPro folder, saves you so much grief in the future. That's the exact program that you used with all its settings. And now I've put it right in the folder with all the rest of the output. Now I'm just going to take a look-see in the output file. Here's the output, number 13 that I just made. And it'll have, I'm not going to be discussing what it has here, I just want to show you. It has lots of stuff that it automatically saved. And the thing it didn't automatically save that you had to put there was this program right here. In the future, if you want to rerun that program in exactly the form that it was in, you go to this particular program icon, project file, and you run it. Also, if you wanted to share this program with somebody else, you would send them that, and it would include and have everything that they needed. Okay, we're in the home stretch here. This next one is personal, and I suspect optional. It's just the way I found that I like to do it. You may find another way. But stumbling along and bumping my way into various hard corners led me to this particular method. Two other files that I find really useful are the GIS files that go with all these runs. And then a journal, really, sort of journal that reminds me of what I did, what I was thinking, and what I found. And I'll show you examples of both of these right now. You'll see where I have them stored. There's my GIS, QGIS, which is what I tend to use. And I've got it there so that all the links that it has from there, it maintains so that you leave it in this position and use it. The other one is the notes. I use a Word document to keep my notes, and I want to show you an example of both of these. Nothing particularly special about this GIS file. I try to be specific, of course, about the names when I bring things in, because as you'll see, the names are quite generic. They say Benz and curves and things like that, and don't actually identify the program that it comes from. That's up to you when you bring it into GIS to name it. So I have my GIS that I have. And then I keep a set of notes, as I said, that I'll show you what they look like here. I try to tell myself where I got the original program from, in case I need to go back, identify what my centerline data is, and then for each version, you'll see here for version 2, version 3, I keep notes, and if I need to, I put images in. In this particular case, I didn't use a lot of images. But I do put in pictures of dialog boxes that show me what particular aspect I'm working on and what the values might be. So there it goes up by version 10, version 11, finally to, this is when I used MATLAB, and then there's version 12. Then I have my expository notes down here, as you will see, with things that I have in the expository notes too, that tell me what I'm doing. So I'm keeping a running journal of what I do and what I see. If you're working on many projects and you spend a month or two away from it, coming back to your journal and figuring out what's going on and what you did with this particular project is helpful. I suspect all of you have your own methods, and probably better than mine in many cases. This was a quick summary. I hope you found it useful. They're just some of the things that I found to help me stay on track. Please let me know if you have questions, and if you discover methods that are easier, I would be interested in knowing myself. As usual, thank you for watching the video.